the DOJ is deciding to go after non-filers with the non-filers and people that make mistakes specifically for denaturalization. We talked a little bit about that. It's almost like denaturalization has become a priority for the Department of Justice, and they're now going to use the IRS and IRS records.
Welcome to the Tax Rep Network podcast. We are actually, and I'm going to butcher this too. Where are we?
Mashantucket, Pequot.
At the Mashantucket, Pequot. We're actually on the reservation land, but we're in the community center. Thanks to Christina Walker, one of our tax rep members, who invited us here. Carlos Samaniego is in town here in Connecticut. Had to get together and do a podcast, and which led to an adventure finding a place to host it. But we're here. Good trip in, other than the car rental.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and thank you, Christina, for inviting us to this beautiful land here. This is your tribal. This is like the center of the community nation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I remember in law school there was actually a course on tribal law, which is obviously different.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, who would ever study that? And then I moved to Connecticut, and actually we actually do. I haven't had to deal with it myself, although I did have a good criminal W-2 falsity gambling thing, and they were with one of the casinos. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A story for another podcast. Anyway, yeah, no, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah,
a lot of interesting stuff. I made a joke. So I have a client who is very involved in the transition committee for President Trump, and there was an issue going on anyway. So I emailed, said, "Look, I'm going to have to get out of this case." I said, "I may have to anyway because I'm expecting to get a phone call, for IRS commissioner for the position." And he emailed me. He said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Well, everyone else seems to be in for this, so why shouldn't I? I can join the carousel of commissioners." And he actually said, "That's not funny." I was like, but it's true. We've had acting after acting after acting while we were waiting for Billy Long to get, approved. Or the term is escaping me at the moment. And you're the one who's jet lagged.
This is our seventh one. Confirmed, right? This is the seventh one, right, as of this year.
Yeah. Well, for a while we had a different acting each week. Right? They appointed someone acting, and they were like, "I don't want to do this. I'm leaving." Then the next one, "I don't want to do this." There was once we had, I think, was it 4 different commissioners in 4 weeks?
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Billy Long was there for, I think, 3 weeks, and it seems he was removed. At first it was, he's decided now he's going to be the ambassador to Iceland, which Trump offered him. But then it came out that he was fighting with the Secretary of the Treasury, Besant, and that's a no-no. And
wasn't this guy the auctioneer guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He actually, my understanding is he has a high school degree. He was an auctioneer. He served about 12 years as in the House of Representatives for Missouri, during which twice he put up bills to do away with the IRS. And then he was going to be IRS commissioner. And I don't know, first thing he did is they're getting rid of direct file, which I understand was a big Republican.
Right.
I don't know why. Look, it seems to me if you want to really make change, I'm sure the lobbyists have all gotten to them. But the direct file, anyway, I thought it was a very decent idea. Anyway, he wanted to do away with that. Then he, I don't know. Anyway, he ended up clashing. The point is he's now gone. And Secretary of the Treasury, Besant, is now acting commissioner again.
So he's got 2 jobs going now.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's mostly just delegated the IRS one to the people at the IRS.
Gotcha. But that goes to show you the chaos that's happening over there.
Yeah. Well, no. And the thing that bothers me about all this is if you go back historically, IRS commissioner, that was not a political position.
Right.
So the people that you had commissioners 12 years, 14 years. In other words, it wasn't something you gave to a crony, right? It was somebody that was there. They clearly had a background in this, and the stability there was seen as critical. And it didn't start with our current president. I want to say it probably started around Bush Sr., where the commissioner now became a political appointee.
Yeah.
And so every 4 years or 8 years, you got another one.
Right.
Which I again, for continuity and all the rest, I don't agree with. but there is a lot of chaos.
Do you think it affects morale a lot at the
Yeah.
IRS?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, who's in charge, right? Who's in charge this week?
Right.
But it also, for us, it's causing problems. So for instance, these, it's policy. All the ERC refunds that people are still waiting for.
Okay.
Jeff Sklarz and I have filed one refund suit in 10 years because, so what happens for the folks listening, to claim a refund, you have to file a return claiming the refund within 3 years of the due date of the return or within 2 years after you pay the tax. And so to bring a refund suit, the taxpayer has to be able to pay whatever the assessment is and then pay for lawyers, because when you do this, you're in federal district court or the federal court of claims.
Mm,
So you're usually talking big dollars. The client feels they have a very strong case, because if you sue the IRS and lose, they now have a judgment. So your 10-year collection statute becomes a 20-year federal judgment.
Right.
So these are fights you kind of want to pick,
right,
carefully.
right.
And so again, we filed one in 10 years. It was actually, do you know my my reasonable comp S corp story, Bob, the horror story with Bob?
That I do.
I've done that a number of times. That was the case. We brought the suit. So it's not something we do all the time. We have filed 5 in the last month.
Oh, no kidding.
People who have these ERC refunds, they've made the claim, 2 years is going to run.
Mm,
And, what happens is you make the claim, you have to wait till either it's denied or 6 months, but you cannot wait more than 2 years. And so we've had these accounting firms calling, say, yeah, we filed it 2 years ago. I'm like, well, what do you mean 2 years ago? They're like, yeah, the 2 years will be in 3 weeks. And we're like,
no.
yeah, we got to hurry up and do this.
Right.
I think so where am I going with this? The chaos at the IRS, people aren't processing things.
Right.
ERC is stalled, then it starts again. Now it's stalled again. It's actually going to wreak havoc with taxpayers who, if their accountants don't realize they might blow the 2 years, which means now you better hope the government does it eventually. Otherwise, you're out your money.
Right.
DOJ has to answer these things. And DOJ is in chaos because they decided randomly to get rid of the tax division.
Right.
So tax division is now going to be part of, like, I guess, the other division. I don't know. The whole thing makes no sense to me.
Everybody's doing everybody else's job.
It feels like a Dilbert comic.
Well, you know what's interesting? It's and I'm like super jazzed. I'm actually here because getting the opportunity to sit here with Eric to be able to ask these questions, because I know how close you are to a lot of what's happening.
On that note,
Oh.
I call my friends. I don't want to name them, and said, look, I'm trying to get a hold of blah, blah, blah. And they all say they must have sent out an email with this line. They're like, Eric, the house is on fire, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And so one of them I was trying to get hold of, it's like a 990. It's a nonprofit issue. And they actually told me there's no one left. They got rid of them all. No one down there knows who's in charge of anything. We have to try to find this thing. It really is, it's, you know what it is? It's unnecessary chaos.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of the people we knew who came and spoke at the conferences and stuff all took the buyout. So until October 1st, they can't talk to me. They're all they're all sitting at home. Well, you know what? None of them want to get in trouble. They'll lose their retirement. So when they did this, they literally, you're an IRS employee, which means no speaking out loud without approval, but you can't come into the office.
So they're literally getting paid
to
not
sit
to
at
go to
home.
work.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was the early buyout. And so on October 1st, I've gotten a bunch of texts from people. Oh, I got to come on your podcast. October 1st, I got, and I'm like, okay, we're happy to have you. We'll have the litany of people.
Looking forward to it, huh?
Oh, my Lord.
And then, obviously speaking of the leadership changes happening at the top levels of the IRS, I was telling Eric on my flight in here yesterday that I had read a recent recent major change the DOJ is making on its own that's kind of raising a lot of eyebrows. And that change was the DOJ is deciding to go after non-filers with the non-filers and people that make mistakes specifically for denaturalization. We talked a little bit about that. It's almost like denaturalization has become a priority for the Department of Justice, and they're now going to use the IRS and IRS records for that.
So here's the thing. If anybody really wondered if Steve Miller was racist, this, I think, is your evidence. So you've gone now from, we got to get the criminals that have come across the border, to now we got to get anybody who's come across the border, even if they're working and paying taxes, to people who came here, became citizens, and we still want to get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
And so that, I think, is very indicative. And again, for the campaign trail, it was, the criminals.
Right.
Now, there was all kinds of stats that prove that there aren't these undocumented illegal criminals that are like
Running around.
on a rampage,
Yeah.
whatever. But you know what? At least I'd say, look, if you have people here illegally who have committed a crime, I'm all for it. I think most and he won. Most Americans were for that. It seems to be devolving into, is there an excuse to really just get rid of anybody? I'm not sure really what the rationale is, other than some good old-fashioned racism that I can come up with. But
and to me, this is kind of an important topic. I live in the heart of Southern California, and obviously a very big immigrant population, and I mean, we're seeing it daily. I mean, heck, we talk about we're trying to get rid of the illegal immigrants for not being here, but they're literally yanking people out of the courthouse, trying to do everything legally, right? And now I've even had situations where people that have green cards that want to go through the process of getting their spouse an ITIN number, and now they're like, oh hell no, we don't. There's no way in hell we're going to give the government information on my spouse, and that's becoming a big issue now.
Well, I actually feel terrible because there are folks that I helped get an ITIN so they could pay their taxes. The hope being that at some point, because the theory was, if your only crime was that you were here illegally, but you didn't commit any other crimes, that pay your taxes, and at some point they're going to get their act together and you can apply for citizenship and go through that. I do think about that. Those people that I've helped, are they all sitting at home now waiting because government knows where they are?
Well, it's a catch-22 because I know a lot of naturalization attorneys in the in Southern California, and they're basically like, one of the process of becoming a naturalized citizen is literally you need a history of tax filing.
Yeah.
But now that history of tax filing has become a
way to get you.
So what do you do? And then obviously you have a lot of people who are naturalized citizens for years. I didn't even realize up until yesterday, I was on ancestry.com and saw my grandparents document they became naturalized citizens back in the 70s. So, but literally this is a process that, imagine had they had not filed or made a mistake on their tax return or not filed a tax return, maybe they didn't have a filing requirement, and now they're coming after them for not filing. I don't know. We don't know. This is just a Pandora's box. I think it really is right now.
And it's going to be this way for like 3 more years, and then hopefully the pendulum will swing back the other way. But it's no, I mean, to the point where people who are U.S. citizens feel they have to carry their birth certificate with them. That's a problem. And it's sort of, is this really what you want America to be? And by the way, again, if you're listening to this and you're pro getting rid of the undocumented, I get it.
Yeah.
But we're going, I think like everything else, it's gone overboard.
Right.
And it's like, for instance, I mean, this isn't a tax topic, but Kennedy, right? Who's for, what is it, Health and Human Services, whatever he's in charge of. I'm all for getting rid of, high fructose corn syrup and the red dye and all that.
Right.
Does he do that? No. What is he going after? Vaccines. Okay.
Everything's just a little bit of an extreme. But going back to, and we were talking about this at lunch. So we have this whole process, DOJ, tax mistakes, non-filers. This presents a huge opportunity, I think, and I was telling you this, for us as tax professionals to reach out to people that deal with immigration issues, for clients that may be non-filers. A lot of people in the immigrant community are self-employed. Sometimes they make mistakes on their returns or don't file their tax returns. And I know I'm going to be making a concerted effort to at least let those people know that if they have those types of clients, that we're here. And I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of these guys.
Well, especially for the people that have become citizens who are now non-filing, given DOJ's opinion to, I have to tell you, I think if somebody came to me and they were here undocumented, I'm not so sure I'd be advising them to file. Or get an ITIN. I think what I would tell them is, look, I can tell you what the rule is.
Right.
Then I could, tell you what I would do, which is I don't know that I would file.
What about those individuals that are naturalized citizens? They are citizens officially,
Yep.
but they haven't filed.
Well, it sounds like DOJ is going to try to make an argument to DNAT. So those folks,
Get back into the system.
Get into the system, get filed, and if you owe a balance, get into a payment plan or be dealing with it.
Right, right.
Yeah, no, it's something I never thought we'd see this, but yeah, no.
This is going to be interesting. Well, and obviously we're going to kind of keep track of this as things start happening, because all this is literally happening in real time.
Oh yeah.
Real time information. Other topic I really wanted to talk, Eric, about was something that happened in our firm just this last week. We've had like 3 clients specifically that I mentioned to you that came to us because they went to, I'll call them the big boys out there, the ones,
those national companies that offer resolution. You hear them on satellite radio.
Yeah.
No, I hate these guys. And by the way, it's not because they're big or whatever. What bothers me is, so first I want to talk about the misleading. Then what you raised is really off the wall.
Yeah.
There was one of them, again, I won't name it, give 1-800 scammers a phone call. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative. Now, so my IRS collection guy, the 3rd edition and now the 4th edition, which is just out, I actually have in the forward, there is no Fresh Start Initiative. It was in 2012. Great changes were made. They're permanent. There's no initiative. So I joke that if you call the IRS and ask them about their Fresh Start Initiative, you'll get one of 2 responses. Either they'll laugh at you because they're old enough to know, yeah, you're about 13 years late. All right. Or they won't know what you're talking about because they were in high school at the time. So there's no initiative. But so what bothers me is they know there's no initiative, but they're using it as a tactic that why you should call them. We've had people call us say, well, we say we have to do the analysis. Well, don't you know about the Fresh Start program? Yeah, actually, I'm very familiar with it, and there is no program. It ended in 2012.
Right.
What you raised, and I'll let you tell this, it's so by the way, it's background. When you do so anyway, anyone who's a tax practitioner, there are ethics rules that are embodied in Circular 230.
Right.
Publication by the IRS. Whether you're an attorney, EA, CPA, if you're representing people before the IRS, you're bound under Circular 230. And it basically says you cannot take a contingent fee, meaning a percentage of what you save or anything like that, except for very limited circumstance. Refund litigation, credits or trying to get credits refunded, whistleblower cases, they're very limited. There's actually a proposal now to do away with them completely. There will be no contingent fees. So with that as background, these companies, I cannot do an offer in comp. Like if Carlos came to me, I can't do an offer and get a percentage of what I save him. First of all, you can't. It's a violation of the ethics rules. But it never made any sense to me either because, all right, so we resolved it. You got an offer because you proved you couldn't pay. Now, how are you going to pay me?
Right.
The whole thing never made any sense to me. So with that, they can't get a contingent fee. It sounds like they've swung the other way, which they just want everything up front.
Yeah. I had 3 specific cases, and I want you to kind of talk just in general. First case was a young lady came to us. She had paid $10,000 to one of the big boys here, and basically they said, they were going to start the process, and like a lot of our clients do. And I was telling Christina earlier, a lot of times people will pay you to get started, and they kind of disappear on you. They kind of they think that it's magically going to get all resolved without any of their input.
Well, how
right?
did you?
Yeah.
Problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's something that's a whole other training in itself, how to deal with that. But she did pay the $10,000, and then she eventually got that CP 504, and she's like, "Oh shoot, I still got a tax problem going on." She reached back out to them, and basically the big boy came back and said, "Oh yeah, we need an additional $25,000 to get started." And when you're considering a tax debt that's less than $80,000, that's a pretty big chunk of that tax debt. So that's case 1. The second case was an individual that got, I call it the baby hook. A lot of times these companies will say, hey, don't go to those other people. They're charging you thousands of dollars to get started for your retainer. We only charge you $500. We'll do your full investigation, which is just a hook, that hook in the fish to reel you in. He got super excited, got started. And they literally came back to him and they said, yeah, based on your situation, it's going to be $45,000 to get started. And I might be off by a couple $1,000s. I'm going by memory here, but they wanted $45,000 to get started. And he's just like, there's just no way I can do this. And the guy, and not even the professional, the salesperson called him back and literally threatened him or extorted him, right? And said that if you do not get started with us, we'll just report you to the IRS. That's going on a whole different level right there.
Well, and a couple things. First of all, report what? They already know you owe money.
All right. Good
So
point.
I'm not really sure what the threat is there. So A, you're going to report it, but B, that is good old fashioned extortion.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, wait a second. Are you serious? He goes, they basically said they were going to report me. And obviously I wasn't thinking fast enough. They already know about you. That's why you're getting the letters, right?
No, but
Right.
but it's clearly a scare tactic.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the third one we had was another individual that paid a few $1,000s to get started. Got all excited. He did have small business owner, had multiple issues going on. Had the IRS, the FTB, and the CDTFA, California Sales Tax Division. And they came back with them and said, hey, you know what? It's 50,000. Was it 25, 50,000? It was an obscene amount of money. And he's just like, look at my bank account. I don't have any money. They're like, no problem. We'll set you up on a $2,900 monthly payment. And when it's paid, we can get started. So it's just, to me, it's just these massive amount of money. They really don't know what's going on. We talk about it all that time, doing that investigation to really know what the problem is. I later found out that third person, they never looked into the California tax problem. They didn't look into the sales tax problem. With most of these big chain retailers, they're only dealing with one agency. It's the IRS. And we both know, we're in the state of Connecticut. These state agencies, and this can be the final topic that we talk about here, is the state agencies, they know the IRS is coming fast. Guess what they're going to be doing?
I have found that the state of Connecticut is far more aggressive than the IRS.
Mhm.
There are far fewer rules. If you ask the DRS leadership, so for our offers, there are no rules. You just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And so when you tell them, why don't you like Massachusetts and New York basically follow what the IRS does? What they'll tell you is, well, it gives us flexibility. They never use flexibility in favor of the taxpayer. It is always like, to them, what's uncollectible is whether they can grab something or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually had clients that have told me, they're getting wage garnishments, everything else from the state of Connecticut. They won't budge. So they leave. One went to California, one went to Florida, one went wherever. And so what I have found is, if you are out of the state for a couple of years and now you come to do an offer because they can't get you, well, I tell people, so I got in this phone call. They tell me the situation. I'm now in Florida. What can Connecticut do? I said, well, look, broadly speaking, if you go and open an account with Bank of America, there's a branch in Connecticut, they can hit that account. But if you go to Sunshine State Credit Union, could Connecticut reach it? Yes, they'd have to get a judgment, bring it to Florida, get an attorney to go to court, get it approved in Florida, and then go over to Sunshine State Credit Union, and they're not going to do it.
Gotcha.
And so, and I said, after a couple of years of their not being able to reach you, all of a sudden you'll find that they will take one of these very low offers just to get rid of it.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a whole strategy, which I can't really go around marketing.
Right.
If you can, you owe Connecticut a lot of money, leave Connecticut.
Well, I wish I could say that about Cali Claw, state of California. That's my nickname, Cali Claw.
Oh, yeah.
It's just they don't give a damn where you're at. You live in Florida, they're getting your bank account in Florida.
Yep.
You live in Hong Kong. Yeah, I've had clients, an airline pilot from Hong Kong Airlines, reach out to me because they kept on freaking going after his bank accounts. So, and again, each state is just so dramatically different.
Yep.
But you just have to be aware. All these states already know right now, and Eric is one of the first people that taught me this concept years ago, that if you got a tax issue, I do it in every one of my interviews. People call me up. I got an IRS problem, and then they're in shock when I'm like, all right, let's talk about California. or what state do you live in? Because they're like, well, wait a second. No, I'm calling you about no. You don't understand. More than likely we got time. We got to go deal with your state issue because you don't have time, or they're already trying to come after you. So
Right.
yeah.
Or they'll come out of the blue.
Yeah.
Like the IRS, if you go through any of our training, there's a set number of notices that have to go out statutorily. State of Connecticut, you literally get a tax warrant in the mail, and 30 days later, they're in your account. They garnish your wages. They're brutal.
Yeah.
They're brutal.
And California has this thing is that they will send you it's 3 letters total, but they will send it to your last known address. And your last known address could have been 10 years ago. And then once that has happened,
All bets are off.
basically it. All bets are off. They're coming after you.
Oh yeah, no, I had this situation where the state of Connecticut a few years ago updated their software, whatever they were doing. Going to be great, going to be wonderful. Which already is like, oh, here we go. I suddenly started getting calls and emails from clients I haven't seen in a decade. Didn't we do an offer with Connecticut? Yeah. They're saying I owe $500,000. The system woke up, didn't recognize any of the offers because apparently the way they'd been coded back then, I don't know. I don't know the technical details of it. So I must have had a dozen former offers that were accepted. So of course you call Connecticut, they're like, well, get us the acceptance letter. It was 12 years ago. I don't know. I don't even know if I even have the file anymore.
Right.
And I ended up going to the director of collection, and they did have a way of researching it and finding that stuff, but for like 3 months, and of course I can't charge the client for this, and it's not my fault. At least I didn't feel like you could charge the client for it. And finally they got it all straightened out. But what a nightmare! And here's the thing: what if you didn't have an attorney? You went and did it yourself. Now you've moved. They think you owe money and start garnishing you again.
Well, yeah, and I know we got to wrap up. Eric needs to get on that highway before rush hour traffic on a Friday here, but I'm super excited in regards to just getting us opportunity to do this.
We're going to do this again in a month.
Yeah, I'll be back in a month.
Yeah.
My daughter Bella, for you guys are following, she's graduating from the Coast Guard Academy boot camp here tomorrow, actually. So, but thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
No, this is great. And it's fun because there are changes all the time. And so I have to tell you, and again, I'm really an apolitical person. And I like to tell people I'm an independent voter. I get to hate both parties equally.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that was a relief when Biden won, whatever you think of either of them, is not waking up every morning to that crazy headlines. Now, how much of that was the media versus how much of it was really President Trump? But the point is, all of a sudden it got quiet and calm for a little while. And now it feels like we're back to the crazy. Every day there's something else. And
well, I'll tell you, the marketing in me, I'm the marketing trainer with Tax Rep, and take advantage of these news headlines because you got more content, Christina. You got more content you can work with on a daily basis, literally hourly basis. It's almost impossible to keep up because things are happening so fast.
Well, that's the funny thing is, so every month we do a marketing session. Carlos and Kevin generally do it. And we've been doing a lot with the AI tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so I emailed Carlos and Kevin about probably a month and a half ago. I said, look, I'm going to create for our members, like a checklist of here are the different tools. And you're like, yeah, but half that's already changed, right? It's changing so quickly that every month it feels like it's not like, yes, you're building on it, but you're also updating because
it changes so quickly.
Yeah.
We were talking at lunch about another tool that I had found that's blown my mind. And again, it's just that you have to kind of stay on top of this. But the important part for you, especially if you're watching this, Tax Rep members and people that are thinking about becoming Tax Rep members, is that the opportunity is there. I've seen more resolution business in the last 2 weeks start flooding in. We always talked about the wave for the last 4 years. We're literally at the peak of the wave. I mean, we're ready to kind of take that in. So,
yeah, no, it is. It's like a broken fire hose. Well, first of all, so just with all the chaos, the IRS still had the largest collection year ever, 5.1 trillion. Why? All the automated enforcement is now on. And what you have here is, in a way, it's a perfect storm for taxpayers. They let the people go that answer the phones. so it's hard to get through. They're closing the taxpayer assistance centers and the automated enforcement. And the thing about that is there's no human being to talk to. So it just runs. So you have people that now have trouble getting a hold of somebody.
We're having trouble. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, and so what I've been getting a lot of is accounting firms sending their clients to me. And they'll say very bluntly, before we would pick up the phone, we would try to work it out ourselves. We can't get to anybody.
Right.
The contact that I generally call, he'll tell me, he said, Eric, your concierge service has ended. Right.
Yeah.
But in reality, he does try very hard to put me in touch with somebody. But the problem they have is it's a it's just a revolving door at the IRS. Anyone that can get out is getting out.
Getting out.
And so they're heading for the doors. And what's left is people so we had one, the automated levy came out. We contacted them on behalf of Amanda contacted them. We had submitted a financial. The person's uncollectible. And I have another story on that too. The person on the phone agreed that they had it. Nobody, not she, not any of the other people in their little phone bank or their supervisor, this is ACS, knew how to release a levy. And Amanda's like, well, I understand that, but can we get to somebody who can?
Yeah.
Because we need the fact that you know how to do it, we still need it released. I had one now. It was a revenue officer. We submit everything. He calls me in April and says, yep, uncollectible. We don't get a letter, but a week ago, we get a letter from a new revenue officer about the same taxpayer. Please submit all the financial blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I sent it back saying, we just went through this with this other revenue officer. We sent everything in. I can send it to you because I know the story if you can't find it, but you guys determined he was uncollectible. Can you call me? I don't hear anything. 3 days later, I get all the levies in the mail. So now I send, that standard letter saying that you're in violation of federal statute, uncollectible, 6343, all that. I get no answer for a day, no answer for a second day. So now I call Hank Key, who's the director of collections, who puts me in touch with his chief of staff with the territory manager. Why? They don't know who the group manager is. It's again a rotating door. No one knows who the group manager is of this group. So now they finally find the group manager who calls me and says, yeah, we couldn't find the paperwork, but we found it and we released it. And then they faxed me all the levy releases. That's kind of what we're dealing with. And
that's why you brought up not too long ago, pricing is going up because this is just getting way too, way more complicated and the scenario you just said right there.
Yeah.
What took an hour is taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, a year ago, I could tell you, this is how this is going to play out. Even if you have to make a phone call, here's who you're going to call. And you're looking at, it's going to cost you $3,000 worth of time. So if you take 4,500, 5,000, you're going to make money. You'll have profit even above your billable rate. Amanda finally told me, so we would do a $750 just phone consult. Right. We'll hear what you have to say and we'll give you, at least our advice verbally. And then if you want to go forward, $1,500 to pull transcripts, do the analysis. And it was also $1,500 if we're going to also call for first time abatement and set up a streamline. She said, they're screwing these up. We get people who don't know what we're talking about. She said, I've had to call 3 or 4 times. She said, I just want to let you know, if I actually put my billable time in on this, we're losing money. And finally, so Jeff and I were literally had a phone call where we're just like, all right, beyond the consult, $5,000 retainer billed hourly. Yeah. And on the one hand, we lose the profit piece, if you want to call it that, but we can't get burned that way.
Right.
But yeah, no, it creates work, but doesn't make sense. It's not the kind of work you want created. You know what I mean? It's creating chaos. And so we were talking to the deputy commissioner for the DRS. His name's Lou. He's a good guy. He's their chief litigator. And we were talking and Jeff interrupts us and he said, Lou, I can boil this down to right now. If you want to come look, you know what we do at Green and Sklar's? You want to know what we do? We shovel shit. If you want to work at Green and Sklar's, you can come in here any morning and just grab a shovel. And Lou starts laughing, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
In other words, one of my former senior partners used to say, they said, Eric, there was a time when there had tons of collection work. I'm trying to remember what year it was. Like the government woke up and decided to take the gloves off and go after everyone. You had the 98 Act. I'm going to say it was probably around 2010, around there. For a while after the 98 Act, no one at the IRS knew what they could do anymore. So they didn't do anything. So from 99 to 05, there was like very little enforcement. Maybe it was 07. Anyway, at one point it swung back and he told me, he said, it's good to have work, but this isn't the kind of work I want to have. This is like fighting upstream kind of work is the way he put it. And it feels like we're kind of there. This will, by the way, smooth itself out.
Yeah.
I'm confident this will calm down, at least in 3 years, I hope, but hopefully sooner than that.
Yeah.
This will all settle down. But until then, it's interesting times.
Well, until next month.
Until next month when we reconvene
to see what the hell's happened in the last month. We'll probably have 2 more commissioners now.
Yeah, no. So how many more commissioners? We should actually, we should put that out as a survey or a bet, and we'll give away T-shirts or something. How many more commissioners do you think we'll have between now and 30 days from now? Well, they're not going to get anyone appointed because that takes months. So really, we're probably going to, the Senate's probably going to be there for a while.
Gotcha.
It would be my guess. So we're not running that. We're not running the contest. Anyway, because everyone just say, yeah, one. All right. No, cool. So we will reconvene and do this again.
Let's do it again next month. And thanks again to Christina and the Mashantucket Pequot Nation for giving us the opportunity to use their beautiful facilities. And if you ever get a chance, come visit. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, and Foxwoods. I mean, if you're wondering, why have I heard the name? Because they have Foxwoods Hotel and Casino.
Okay, that's what.
With all the entertainment. It's one of our 2 casinos here in Connecticut, and we did the New England IRS Rep Conference there the first 5 years.
We're becoming honorary residents for the next 4 years, so we're going to be up here quite a bit for the next 4 years. So looking forward to coming back again. So.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and see you next week on the podcast.
Next week. Bye-bye.